All right. Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today,
Here we go.
we are going to be looking into relationships.
Yeah.
And I think most of our listeners are probably already pretty good at
The
this.
experts.
But the
Well,
source material that we're looking at claims to have cracked the code
Go
for long-lasting relationships.
All right. I'm intrigued.
And some of the stuff in here,
Yeah.
honestly, it really surprised me.
Okay.
I was like, wow, I never thought about that.
Oh.
And the cool thing is, even though this is framed around romantic relationships, I think a lot of the advice that we're going to be talking about today
Yeah.
applies to really any kind of relationship.
Totally. Yeah. Any connection you want to keep strong.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So should we jump right in?
Let's do it.
Okay. So
Lay it on me.
the source starts off by
Mhm.
talking about the three pillars
The three pillars.
of a successful relationship.
Okay.
And those are communication, trust, and respect.
It sounds simple enough.
Right. Like, duh.
But I think,
Yeah.
when you really start to think about it,
Mm-hmm.
it's easy to maybe
Right.
take those things for granted or
Yeah,
overlook them. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think what this source does really well is it doesn't just tell you, like, oh,
Yeah.
communicate better. It
Yeah.
really dives into
It gets into the nuance.
what does that actually mean?
Exactly.
How do you actually do that?
The nitty gritty.
Right.
Yeah.
And even reading this source myself, I was thinking about these three pillars. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so
Right.
which one do you think I need to work on?
Yeah. Exactly. Which
I
one?
feel like you.
Totally. I think for sure.
Yeah.
We all, I think
Well-
most people probably assume
Yeah.
that they're good communicators
Right.
But it's-
Until you actually think about
until
it.
you really examine your habits. And so for me, what really hit home
Mm-hmm.
was that emphasis on active listening,
Right.
which we've probably all heard about, but it's so easy to forget.
Yes. And I
To
think
really implement it. Yeah.
it's really easy to think
Yeah.
I'm listening,
Right.
but I'm actually just
You're just waiting for my turn to talk.
to jump in.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And this source is saying,
Mhm.
no, you have to
You got to really try.
really understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, to get into their headspace.
Right. And that's
Which is tough.
so much harder.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in an argument.
Oh, especially then. Oh my gosh.
Right.
It's like your instinct is to be defensive
Yes.
and jump in, but this is saying,
Right.
hold on.
Take a step back.
Yes, step back.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've talked about communication,
Yeah.
but trust is another one of those pillars
Yes.
that the source says is just
Absolutely.
absolutely crucial.
Yeah, they say it's all about
Walking the walk,
right.
not just talking the talk.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So
what's interesting about that
Yeah,
is
yeah.
like all these little things that add up.
it really is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's those small everyday actions.
Exactly.
Consistently keeping your promises.
Yeah.
Showing up when you say you will.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those things might seem small,
Yeah.
but over time,
They've really built up.
they create this foundation of reliability,
Mm-hmm.
and it shows the other person that you can be counted on,
Right.
and that allows them to feel safe
Yes.
and secure enough
Yeah.
to open up to you.
There's this one line in the source that I just kept thinking about.
Okay.
And it talks about how ignoring those small acts of care and appreciation
Right.
can lead to emotional wear and tear
Right.
in a relationship. And
Yeah.
I was like,
That's a powerful image.
isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Emotional wear and tear.
Right. Okay, I can picture that.
Yeah. It's you don't change the oil in your car.
Right.
Eventually, you're going to
Yeah, it's going to catch up with you.
have problems.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah,
so
I know.
that's where the source gets really interesting is
Yeah.
okay, so we had this emotional wear and tear,
Mm-hmm.
but then how do you,
What's the opposite of that?
what are you doing?
Yeah, well, how do we create
Yeah.
emotional resilience?
Right, so what's the antidote?
That's the question.
Is it just grand gestures?
Right.
Or is it
Or can those small things
are those everyday things actually make a
just
difference?
make a difference?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I think it's both.
Okay.
But I think those small gestures
Okay.
of affection and appreciation
Mm-hmm.
are so crucial.
Yeah.
Because think about it.
Okay.
A compliment, a
Mhm.
hug,
Right.
a simple thank you.
Yeah.
Those things, they might seem small,
Right.
but they're like tiny deposits.
Into the emotional bank account.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Of the relationship.
I like that.
Each one strengthens the connection,
Okay.
bit by bit.
So it's like all those little deposits are counteracting
Exactly.
that daily grind.
The daily grind.
And the stress.
That could lead to that.
The negativity.
That can creep in.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're building a buffer.
You're building a buffer.
With all those little deposits.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And if we think about it from like a psychological perspective, this is like classic positive reinforcement.
Okay.
You know, every time you express appreciation, you do something kind of, you're reinforcing those positive aspects of the relationship.
And then they want to...
You're making the other person feel loved, valued, appreciated.
Right. And then they're more likely to...
Which in turn makes them more likely to reciprocate.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And this isn't just romantic relationships.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
This applies to friendships.
Like if I'm thinking about...
Family relationships.
Yeah, family, friends, it's like...
Coworkers. I mean, it's really about recognizing that every interaction, we're either making deposits...
That's an impact.
...or withdrawals.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've got to be mindful of that.
Gotta be mindful.
Right.
Yeah.
And then another thing that the source dives into is, of course...
What's that?
Communication.
Force.
And they offer some very specific advice.
Oh, I like it when they get specific.
Right.
Yeah.
For how to make your communication more effective.
Okay.
So they talk about active listening,
right.
which we touched on earlier.
Right.
But they also talk about expressing your feelings clearly and like...
Breathing a safe space.
Yes, like a foundation of openness and honesty.
Right. So it's like,
like, hey, disagreements are going to happen.
Yeah.
But here's how to navigate them.
Here's how...
Without blowing everything up.
Not making it worse.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I think...
And it's not just what you say, but how you say it. Right.
Absolutely.
Like finding that balance between honesty and kindness.
Yes.
Being assertive.
Right.
But not aggressive.
It's such a fine line.
Yeah.
It really is. And it takes practice.
Right. And it ties back to that one of the pillars.
The respect.
Respect.
Yeah.
Like you can be honest without being hurtful.
Yes. And I think that's something
that's a skill
we could all work on.
Yeah.
That we all...
Myself included, for sure.
Right. And it takes practice.
It does.
Yeah.
But I think this brings up another challenge. What's that?
Like, how do you navigate those really tough conversations?
Right. The ones where emotions are high.
You're building.
And there's a risk
you're furious.
of things getting heated.
Emotional.
Yeah. You're like walking on eggshells.
Right. And I think the source touches on this a little bit, but I wish they'd gone...
I think they could have gone a little deeper there.
A little deeper.
Yeah.
Because
it's one thing to say.
It's easy to say.
Communicate effectively.
Communicate effectively.
Right.
But how do you actually do that?
But when you're in the situation.
Yeah, when you're in the heat of the moment.
And you're disagreeing about something.
Right.
That's important.
What are those strategies?
Yeah, what are those concrete tools?
That you can use to not shut down.
Without shutting down.
And not get defensive.
Or getting defensive.
Yeah.
Right, and I think there's a lot of different techniques out there.
Yeah.
We could probably do a whole deep dive just on that.
I know, right?
But one of the most effective that I found is using those I feel statements.
Right.
You know, allows you to express your emotions without placing blame on the other person.
Right, so instead of saying...
Right, so for example...
You always leave your dishes in the sink.
Instead of saying, you always leave your dishes in the sink,
you would say...
You could say...
I feel frustrated.
I feel frustrated when the dishes pile up.
Yeah, and it's such a...
It's a subtle shift.
Yeah.
But I think it can...
It makes a difference, though.
Make a big difference.
Yeah.
In how the message is received.
Because it's less...
Yeah, it's less...
attacking.
It's less accusatory.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're focusing on your experience.
You're focusing on, like, I feel this way.
Yeah, I feel this way when this happens.
Yeah, right. And I think that ties into, and that ties back into what the source was saying about focusing on solutions.
Yes.
Instead of
just like dwelling on the problem.
Dwelling on the problem.
Right. So it's like, instead of getting stuck in that who's right, who's wrong.
Who's right, who's wrong blame game.
It's about shifting the focus to collaboration.
Let's work together.
Yeah, let's figure this out together.
Right.
Let's find a solution.
So find a solution.
That works for both of us.
That works for both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
It's a team effort.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Exactly.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
So
going.
Yeah, so we've talked about communication. We've talked about trust.
Trust.
But, you know, this is making me think about how a lot of these principles apply not just to romantic relationships, but like...
To friendships.
To friendship.
Because think about it.
For sure.
Like, clear communication.
Yeah.
Trust, respect.
Making time for each other.
Making time.
Like, all of that is essential.
Right. It's all about human connection.
For any strong, healthy relationship.
Right. And the things that make those connections thrive.
Right. So this is really universal.
I think so. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not just about romance.
It's bigger than that.
Yeah.
So, we were talking about trust earlier. And one thing that this source really got me thinking about is that it's not just about being reliable, but it's also about that deeper level of integrity that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, like really aligning your actions with your words and your values.
When you show up as your true self.
Right. And that
consistently
creates that sense of safety and security.
It builds that foundation.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. And that's what allows for true vulnerability and intimacy to flourish.
Because if you're not being
authentic self.
Yeah. If you're trying to be someone you're not, or if you're constantly breaking promises,
yeah,
you're eroding that foundation of trust.
Right. You're chipping away at it.
And without that foundation, it's hard to really let someone in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't really be vulnerable.
Yeah. Vulnerability is a risk.
Right.
And we're only willing to take that risk.
Right. You have to feel safe.
If we feel safe and secure.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So another big thing that the source talks about.
What's that?
Is conflict.
Conflict? Uh-oh.
And they actually say that conflict, when handled constructively, can be a positive force.
Hold on.
What relation?
The positive force. Which conflict?
I know, right?
Okay, explain this to me.
It sounds counterintuitive.
It does.
But when you think about it.
Okay, I'm listening.
It's like disagreements are inevitable in any relationship.
Right, that's true.
Right, yeah.
So it's not about
whether you disagree.
It's
how you handle it.
It's how you handle it.
Yeah.
Does it strengthen the relationship?
Right. Does it bring you closer?
Or does it tear it apart?
Push you further apart.
And the source actually cites this study from the University of Washington that found that couples who are able to resolve conflict constructively. Reported higher levels of relationship satisfaction.
So there's actual data to back this up.
Yeah. It's not just
some feel-good advice.
Yes, some fluffy advice.
It's like, no, this is
science backed up by science.
Okay, cool.
But, let's get practical here.
All right.
How do you argue well?
All right. How do we do that?
Right.
What does that even look like?
Because it's one thing to say it.
It is. Right.
But it's another thing.
It's another thing to actually
do it.
Implement it.
Yeah.
So
what are your thoughts?
Well, I think, like we were talking about before, those I feel statements can be really helpful.
Right. So like instead of saying...
Yeah, give me an example.
You always leave your clothes on the floor.
Instead of saying you always leave your clothes on the floor.
You would say...
You could say...
I feel stressed.
I feel stressed when the room is messy.
Yeah.
Right.
And then maybe follow that up with...
And then you could even say like, hey, can we figure out a system for keeping things tidy?
Right, because then it's like you're
inviting them into the solution.
You're working together.
Yeah, it's not just a complaint.
To solve it.
Yeah, right.
So you're not just...
Yeah, it's team effort.
Attacking them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think another important tip is to really listen.
Okay.
To what the other person is saying.
Even if you...
Yeah, even if you don't agree with them.
Yeah, even if you're like...
I'm right. I'm right. You're wrong.
You're wrong. Which is so hard.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
But active listening.
But it's a skill.
Can make a huge difference.
Yeah, we can all practice.
Yeah, because when you truly feel heard and understood.
Right.
It's so much easier to find that common ground.
It is. It is. All right. Yeah. We've covered communication. We've covered trust.
Okay.
There's one more big one.
All right, hit me.
That this source talks about.
What's that?
And that is quality time.
Quality time. Okay.
And this is where I think they get really...
Let's get practical.
Yeah, really practical. And really relevant, I think, for our listeners today.
Okay.
They're basically saying...
What are they saying?
Put down the phone.
Put down the phones. Oh, my gosh.
Turn off the TV.
Turn off the TV.
And actually,
just
be with each other.
Connect with each other.
Just connect. Yeah.
In a deeper level.
On a deeper level. I like that.
And it's not just...
Away from the distractions.
Yeah, away from all the distractions. But it's about creating those...
Those sacred spaces.
Yeah, those spaces where you can just...
Where you can just be present.
Present with each other.
With each other, yeah.
And this applies to...
And again, this applies to not just romantic relationships.
Not just romantic relationships.
Friendships.
Family. Okay. Yeah, any connection where you want to...
Yeah, any connection where you want to, like, foster that deeper intimacy.
Foster that deeper intimacy.
Yeah.
And they actually cite research on this.
Oh, cool. There's a University of Chicago study that found a direct link between quality time and both relationship happiness and longevity.
So this is backed up by science.
Yeah, so it's not just, fluffy feel-good advice.
I like it when they have the data.
It's like, no, this is actually important.
Right. Yeah.
But, okay, let's be realistic.
Okay, let's be real.
Yeah. Like, finding that quality time...
It can be hard.
...is so hard.
Yeah, it's so hard.
We are all so busy.
We're so busy.
Yeah.
With work, with family.
With work, with family.
With social media, with everything.
Right. And it's so easy to...
It's so easy to just
get caught up.
Get caught up in the whirlwind of it all.
I feel like there's no time for...
I think there's just no time.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah.
So
what do we do?
What do we do?
Yeah, well, I think...
What does the source say?
Yeah, I think what this source... is trying to challenge us.
Oh,
okay. To be more intentional. Yeah. Intentional with our time. With our time, yeah. It's not about those grand gestures. Yeah, those grand gestures. It's about those small everyday moments. Those little moments of connection. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So it could be as simple as something as simple as taking a walk together after dinner. Yeah, taking a walk together after dinner. Cooking a meal together. Right. Sitting down for 15 minutes. Or just sitting down to chat. Yeah. Without any screens. Without the screens. Just, no phones. Yeah. No TV, no distractions. Yeah, just really being present. Yeah, being present in that moment. Yeah. Right. It's not just physically being in the same room. Right. It's not about just being there physically, mentally and emotionally engaging. Right. And
sometimes the simplest activities can be the most powerful.
Right.
Yeah. Like
reading a book aloud.
Oh, yeah. Reading a book aloud to each other.
Playing a board game. Working on a puzzle together.
Yeah.
It's about finding those shared activities that bring you joy.
And allow you to connect.
On a deeper level.
As you're talking, it's making me think that quality time isn't just...
It's not just about doing something together.
It's about creating a shared experience.
Yes, exactly. It's those moments of...
The laughter, the inside jokes.
Yeah, inside jokes.
The memories that you build together.
Wow.
Love that. Yeah, and that actually reminds me of something that the source mentioned about creating rituals.
Okay.
In a relationship.
Okay.
Whether it's a weekly date night.
Okay, weekly date night.
A morning coffee routine. Or even just like a special way you celebrate birthdays.
Right.
Those rituals become these anchors.
Okay.
That provide stability and connection.
Okay, so it's like something that you can rely on.
Yeah, it's something to look forward to.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to a bigger point about...
What's
intentionality?
Intentionality, yeah.
Like you can't just
assume.
Yeah.
That relationships are just going to magically...
Stay strong.
Stay strong on their own.
You have to.
You got to nurture them.
Yeah.
You got to invest in them.
Put in the work.
Yeah, you got to make them a priority.
Right.
And that brings us to a really interesting point.
Okay.
The source makes.
Okay, what's that?
It's this idea that relationships are like gardens.
Okay.
They require...
Okay, I like that.
Constant tending, nurturing attention.
Right.
You can't just plant a seed
and just walk away
and expect it to flourish.
Right.
You got to water it.
Yeah.
You got to weed it.
Right.
You got to give it the right amount of sunlight.
Okay. So.
Yeah.
What are some of the weeds?
Ooh, that's a good question.
That can creep into a relationship
and
kind of choke out the good stuff.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest weeds is negativity.
Negativity. Okay.
Yeah. When we allow negativity to take root.
Right.
Whether it's complaining.
Yeah.
Criticism. Resentment.
Yeah.
It can poison the entire garden.
Yeah. It's like that negativity starts to spread.
It spreads.
Yeah.
And it overshadows all the good stuff.
Right. And then you forget about the good stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think another common weed is neglect.
neglect of
when we get busy with our lives.
Yeah. It's so easy to just
take it for granted.
Take our relationships for granted.
Right.
And stop putting in the effort.
Yeah, we're not watering it anymore.
We're not watering the garden,
yeah.
And just like a garden needs
yeah.
regular watering.
Right.
Our relationships need...
Yeah, they need attention.
Regular doses of attention.
Affection.
Affection.
Appreciation.
Appreciation.
It's like that saying.
Yeah.
Relationships are like plants.
Okay.
Either you grow together.
Either you grow together.
Or you grow apart.
Or you grow apart, yeah.
Right.
I like that.
Yeah.
So what does the source say about...
How do we get to our gardens?
To our relationship gardens.
Right.
Well, one suggestion they have is to create a gratitude practice.
A gratitude practice, okay.
Where you're regularly expressing appreciation.
Okay, so like really making an effort.
Making a conscious effort.
To notice. Yeah, to notice and acknowledge.
Yeah, the good things.
The things that
they do.
Yeah, the things that they do.
Yeah.
That you're grateful for.
Okay, so
just
so it could be.
A simple thank you.
As simple as saying thank you.
For making dinner?
For making dinner.
Or sending a text?
Yeah, I'm thinking about you.
Letting them know you're thinking of them.
Right.
Yeah, it's about shifting your focus to the positive.
To the positive.
And cultivating...
an attitude of appreciation.
An attitude of appreciation. I like that.
Yeah.
Because then it's like...
It's like you're training yourself.
Yeah, you're training your brain.
Yeah, to see the good.
To focus on the good.
Instead of getting bogged down in the negative.
In the negative, right?
Yeah.
And this actually reminds me of something else that the source talked about.
What's that? Which is?
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Oh, yeah.
Like...
That's so important.
It is. It's essential.
Yeah.
For maintaining a healthy relationship.
Right.
Holding on to grudges or resentment.
Yeah, it's like you're carrying around
is like carrying around a heavy weight.
A heavy weight.
It drags you down.
Yeah.
And it prevents the relationship
from moving forward.
Yeah.
Right, and you're
letting those negative emotions.
Yeah, you're letting the past.
From the past.
Being drove.
You control your present and your future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But forgiveness.
Forgiveness doesn't mean condoning the behavior or forgetting what happened.
Right. It doesn't.
It's more about releasing
those negative
emotions so you can move on.
So that you can move on.
It's about choosing to let go.
Yeah.
Of the anger and the resentment.
Yeah. Create space.
And create space for healing.
With healing.
And reconciliation. Reconciliation, yeah. Because if you're not...
Yeah, if you're holding on to that stuff...
You're not going to be able to.
It's going to fester.
Yeah.
It's going to create more negativity.
Move on and build something better.
Exactly.
And I think it's important to remember that forgiveness...
Forgiveness is a process.
As a process.
It's not a one-time event.
Right.
It might take time.
Yeah, it might take time.
To work through those feelings.
And
come to a place.
Of
true forgiveness. But the effort is worth it. Because it allows you to reclaim your emotional freedom.
Yeah, you're not letting you
control you. That past event control you.
Right, and you can.
And you can create a more positive,
create a better
and loving relationship,
right?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It is, isn't it?
How many layers there are.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, we started with
those basic pillars. Of communication, trust, and respect.
Right,
But then we got into...
We've been talking about...
Yeah, the small gestures. Quality time.
The powers of quality time.
Forgiveness. And now this beautiful analogy.
And individual growth.
The garden.
Right, the garden.
Yeah.
And I think it all comes back to...
Intentionality.
Yeah.
We can't just...
We can't just sit back and expect it to work.
Our relationships to thrive.
Right.
We got to actively participate in their growth and nourishment.
Yeah, we got to put in the work.
Got to do the work.
Yeah.
And that brings us to...
And that leads us to another really crucial point that the source emphasizes.
What's that?
Which is individual growth.
Individual growth, okay.
Within the context
of a relationship.
So it's saying that it's essential for each person to continue...
To keep pursuing.
Yeah, to keep pursuing their own interests.
Their interests.
Yeah, their passions.
Their personal development.
It's
so easy to get caught up.
Right, like you can still be part of a couple.
Right.
Or a close-knit group of friends.
Yeah.
But you can also...
Have your own
individual life and identity.
Individuality.
Yeah.
Right.
And in fact...
And I think that's so important.
I think continuing to grow as individuals actually strengthens the relationship.
As a whole.
As a whole.
You know, it brings new experiences.
You're both
bringing something new to the table.
Yeah, exactly. It's
like you're each bringing
your own unique flavor.
Your own unique flavors to the table.
Which makes the meal.
More interesting and satisfying.
More interesting and satisfying. Right. And I think
one thing that really struck me.
What's that?
As I was reading this source material, was that it never frames relationships as being easy.
Okay. So it's not.
It acknowledges it acknowledges that there will be challenges.
Okay.
There will be disagreements.
Right.
And there will be times when you need to put in extra effort.
Yeah, because it's not always going to be.
Yeah, it's not always going to be sunshine and roses.
Sunshine and roses.
Right.
And I think...
And that's probably one of the most valuable takeaways.
From this whole...
Yeah, from this whole...
Deep
dive.
Is that relationships.
Relationships are a journey.
Are a journey.
Not a destination.
Not a destination.
There will be ups and downs.
Right. You're going to have...
There will be smooth sailing.
Smooth sailing.
And rough waters.
And rough water.
But it's the commitment.
To
navigating those challenges together.
To working together.
Yeah.
That makes the relationship strong.
It's
not about finding...
It's not about finding...
The perfect relationship.
It's
about finding...
It's about finding someone who's willing to go on the journey with you.
Go on that journey with you and put in the work.
And do the work.
Yeah, because it's not...
And recognizing that the work is ongoing.
Right.
It's not a one-time fix.
Yeah, it's a
continuous process of growth, of adaptation. And deepening connection. Yeah, and that can be both challenging and incredibly rewarding.
Right. So as we wrap up
this deep dive,
I want to bring it back to you, our listener. Yeah.
We've explored a lot.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
Of different ideas.
From the fundamental pillars.
From those.
All the nuances.
Fundamental pillars of a relationship.
Yeah.
To the importance of
small gestures.
Quality time.
Forgiveness. Individual growth. Right.
Well,
what resonated with you the most?
Really resonated with you.
Yeah.
What's one thing you can take away?
Yeah. What's one thing you can take away from
this conversation? And apply to your own relationship.
Yeah. And remember,
because
even small changes.
Yeah. Even those small things
can make a big difference.
Yeah.
Whether it's making a conscious effort to expressing more appreciation.
Carving out time for a meaningful conversation. Or simply being more present. In your interactions. Every step you take towards nurturing your relationships.
Yeah, every little step.
Is a step in the right direction.
Yeah. And
if you're feeling inspired to...
If you want to
dive
deeper into this, I highly recommend checking out...
Check out that full video.
That we mentioned.
Yeah, the one from the source material.
Yeah, it's packed with.
It's got even more insights and tips.
Yeah. And we'll include a link.
In the show notes. You can check it out. And don't forget about those fascinating studies.
Yeah.
We talked about. We'll also include links to those.
University of Washington.
Yeah. And the University of Chicago. Yeah, so you can explore.
Yeah, so you can explore that a little bit more.
The research.
Behind these concepts.
Yeah.
You know?
And remember the conversation.
The conversation doesn't have to end here. We'd love to.
We want to hear from you.
Your thoughts.
Yeah. Connect with us.
Your insights.
On social media.
Yeah. Connect with us on social media.
Share your takeaways.
Your questions. Your own experiences. Building those lasting relationships.
Until next
time. Keep cultivating those connections. Keep tending to those gardens. And keep diving deep. Into the things that matter most. Yeah. And it's like those flavors. Yeah.
Kind of blend together.
Yeah.
To create something even more beautiful.
And delicious.
Uh-huh.
Right. And you know, one thing that really struck me.
Okay.
While I was reading the source material. Was that it never frames relationships as being easy.
It doesn't sugarcoat it.
It doesn't sugarcoat it. Yeah. Like, it acknowledges that there will be challenges.
That there will be challenges.
Disagreements.
There will be disagreements.
Times when you have to put in.
And there will be times
when
you have to put in the extra effort.
The extra effort.
Right.
Because it's not always going to be.
It's not always going to be sunshine and roses.
Sunshine and roses.
Right.
Right. And I think.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the.
That's one of the most valuable.
Most variable takeaways.
Takeaways from this whole. Deep dive.
Was that?
It's that understanding.
Well, relationships are a journey.
Relationships are a journey.
Not a destination.
Not a destination.
You know there will be.
There'll be ups and downs.
Downs you'll have.
There will be smooth sailing.
Smooth sailing.
And rough waters.
Rough waters.
But it's that commitment.
To
navigating those challenges together.
Navigating it
together.
That makes the relationship.
That makes it strong.
Strong and resilient.
That's not about finding.
So it's not about finding
the
perfect relationship. It's about finding someone.
It's about finding someone
who's willing
to go on the journey.
On that journey with you.
Yeah. And
put in the work. Right. And recognizing.
Right. And
it's not a one-time fix.
This is ongoing. It's not a one-time fix. It's a continuous process.
Right.
Of growth. And deepening the connection.
Deepening connection.
Yeah.
And that can be.
And it can be.
Both challenging. And incredibly rewarding.
But rewarding.
Right.
That's
so as we wrap up.
This deep dive.
Yeah. I want to bring it back.
I want to bring it back to you.
Listener.
We've explored a lot.
We covered a lot of ground today.
Different ideas today.
From the fundamental pillars.
Of a relationship.
To all the nuances. And everything in between.
Yeah. The importance of small gestures.
Yeah.
Quality time, forgiveness,
individual growth.
You know what resonated with you?
What really resonated with you? What's one thing you can
take away from this conversation?
From this whole conversation.
And apply
to your own relationships. Yeah.
And remember.
Even small changes.
Small things.
Can make a big difference.
Yeah. So whether it's
making a conscious effort.
Yeah.
To express more appreciation. Carving out time. For a meaningful conversation. Or just being
more present. In your interactions. Every step you take.
Every little step.
Towards nurturing your relationship.
Towards nurturing those relationships.
Is a step in the right direction.
Yeah. And if you're
feeling inspired.
If you want to dive deeper.
To dive even deeper into this topic. Check out that full video.
That
we mentioned.
From the source material.
Yeah. It's got even more insights and practical tips.
We'll include a link in the show notes.
And don't
forget about those studies. Yes. Those fascinating studies.
What we talked about
We'll also include links to those.
The University of Washington.
In the show notes. In
Chicago.
So you could.
So you can explore those a little more.
Explore the research behind these concepts.
If you want to.
Further, and the
conversation doesn't end here.
The conversation doesn't have to end here.
We want to hear from you.
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Connect with us.
Your insights.
On social media.
Connect with us on social media.
Yeah.
Share your takeaways.
Share what you've learned.
Your questions.
Your own experiences.
With building.
Those lasting relationships.
Until next time.
Keep tending to those gardens.
And
keep diving deep.
Into
the things that matter most.